Hey there, AP Art History students. This is Mr. Bruns. We're back in the classroom. It's a new year. And today in this unit, Unit 2, we're going to be looking at Near Eastern art, but with the theme of political power. So we're really going to be looking at three works of art. We're going to be looking at a Babylonian work of art. This is the Stele of Hammurabi. So Hammurabi was a Babylonian king, and he creates this series of laws, and he has these steles, these steles, these large stone structures put around his kingdom to enforce the laws that talked about social justice and agriculture and even construction of homes as well. Then we're going to jump out of that and we're going to go over to the Lamassu. This would be like Sargon II's Lamassu. We'll talk about that. And then we'll finish with a Persian architectural element, and that's going to be Persepolis. So let's get to it. So the first work of art we're looking at here is from the Babylonian period. This is the Stele of Hammurabi in Susa, which is present-day Shush. This is located in Iran. It created right around 1792 to 1750 BCE. It is made of diorite. That's pretty solid stone, and there's some symbolism behind when you create a code of laws in stone. It means it's fixed, it's not going anywhere. I know I'm sounding like Nicolas Cage from National Treasure, but there is some symbolism behind it. The height of this stone is about 7 feet, and it's a high relief, 28 inches, in that sculptural element you see at the top. And now Hammurabi is this king. He has been selected by the gods to be the ruler of the Babylonian Empire. And one of his greatest accomplishments was the codification of his people's rights, duties, and punishments. For every law that's in this codification of laws, there is always a punishment, and most of the punishments are unfortunately death. Okay. And for any wrongdoings, the code was engraved, and on this black diorite stele speaks to both as a work of art, and it depicts a legendary event as well as a historical primary source document that records a conversation about justice between God and man. Okay, so we have at the top, we have Hammurabi, and then we have the god. And how do you really justify to a group of people this set of nearly 300 laws? Well, this was given to me by the gods. And everybody goes, oh, okay, I get it now. The gods have set these laws. Not that maybe Hammurabi created these laws. Maybe he sat down and hammered out these laws with maybe his advisors. It's just better to say that the sun god, Shamash, the god of justice, who is seated in this piece, he gave the laws, okay? And there's a mountain that's indicated by the little 3 flat tiers on which Shamash rests his feet. And Hammurabi is standing in an attitude of prayer. So we want to hearken back to our votive figures with that idea. And he is listening in a very respectful manner. And Shamash sits on this throne, and it has no back, and he's dressed in this sort of long robe, and he's crowned with that sort of conical horned cap. And we'll see that conical horned cap when we look at Lamassu in here in a bit. And there are rays of light rising from his shoulders, and he holds a symbol of power, a measuring rod, and the rope circle, as he's giving the laws to Hammurabi, who is sort of his messenger. Okay? There is a prologue in the front of the stele that lists the temples Hammurabi has restored. Hey, I'm this really great leader. I've restored all these temples. And the epilogue on the back glorifies Hammurabi as a peacemaker. Do you understand why this kind of sits in this sort of art and politics theme? But most of this deal was clearly intended to publish the laws that guaranteed this sort of uniform treatment of people throughout the kingdom, the Babylonian kingdom. And in the long code of laws, he intended, quote, to cause justice to prevail in the land and to destroy the wicked and the evil, that the strong might not oppress the weak, nor the weak the strong, end quote. So most of the 300 laws that are here that we would see in here are entries that deal with commercial and property matters, such as, if you build a house and your house shall collapse and kill the son of the owner, then the guy that builds the house, his son gets killed too. Okay. Only about 68 relate to domestic problems, or family problems, such as that if a son were to raise his hand against his father and strike his father, then the son's hand is cut off. Okay? There are about 20 laws that deal with physical assault. Punishments are always based on wealth. Punishments are based on class. Punishments are based on genders. So the rights of the wealthy are favored over the poor, citizens over slaves, men and women. Okay, the death penalty, again, is a frequent decreed from the crimes such as stealing from a temple or a palace, helping a slave to escape, or insubordination in the military. There are things like trial by water or trial by fire could be imposed, as when an adulterous woman and her significant other, her lover, were to be thrown into the water, right? If a woman is caught with her lover, then they are both tossed into the water. If a woman was to, sleep with her son, uik, right, was to be burned. Okay, so there are all these laws, but it all creates, in this political arena, it creates, control, it creates sort of unity and conformity. But it also establishes, as art historians, we can get a sense of the political themes, we can get a sense of that there's social hierarchy in this society, and religion guides the laws. We can use religion to guide our laws. All right, we're going to be moving on to our next work of art, which will be the Lamassu. So the next work of art, one of my favorite works of art, is the human-headed winged, it could be a lion, it could be a bull, and that is the Lamassu. And it comes in a variety of different ways. So as we're looking through our presentation here, this conversation, you'll see very different ones. Particularly the most famous is Ashurbanipal II. He was an Assyrian king, and he had Lamassus created for the entrance into his court. And when you visit places like Paris or Rome, and you are walking its broad avenues, and you see their massive buildings, things that are part of the civic design of rulers, some of it is conscious and some of it is unconscious. And for the Assyrians, one of the many groups that rose and fell in the ancient Near East, they were the masters of the art of two things: impressing visitors, that ooh-ah moment, and then also intimidating and striking the fear into visitors. So if you were an ambassador to the city of Kalhu, which is today's Nimrud, for example, you would have encountered, ceremonial urbanism, in which the city itself is the stage for the ritual dramas that reinforced and would confirm a ruler's absolute power, such as Ashurbanipal. And even from a distance, those that would approach the city would have seen the high walls and the imposing gates and the temple platforms where the priest kings acted as sort of the intermediaries between the people and the gods. And if you were an important visitor or an ambassador on the way to have audience with the ruler, you would have passed these sculptures extolling the power of the Assyrian armies, and you would have come face to face with the Lamassu. The function of these are these guardian protectors of the palace. They are the guardian protectors of the throne room. And, they ranged in height from like 10 feet up to 13 feet. And they were colossal gateway figures. They had this combination of a bearded head of a man, the powerful body of a lion or a bull, the wings of an eagle. They had the horn headdress of a god, because they are appointed by God. They're the divine right to rule. They were designed to be viewed from the front. They were designed to be viewed from the side. These are important things to have. And the Lamassus seem to have, if you take the front and the side, 5 legs. When you see from the front, there are 2 forelegs are placed together, and the creature appears, stoic, immobile. But when you view it from the side, the legs are shown in, the striding. And so you get this 5th leg. And the sheer size of a Lamassu, twice the person's height, symbolizes the strength of the ruler they defend. and protect. Their forceful form, their prominent place contribute to the architecture of domination. And on the other hand, the exquisite detail of their beards and the feathers and the jewels testified to the wealth of the ruler. And don't forget, at this time, land is the economy, and the more land you have, the larger your empire. Okay, it also means you have more wealth, and if you have more wealth, you have more power. You have significant power. And these fantastic beasts, these composite beasts, do a couple of things. They inspire civic pride, and they also inspired fear, intimidation. They are works of art that are unmistakably political in purpose. That's their political mission. Okay, and in the ancient Near East, the arts played an important, huge, important political role. So let's get to our third work of art in this presentation, and this is in the time of the Persian Empire. Right around the 6th century BCE, this would be the 500s, the Persians, a nomadic Indo-European speaking people, began to seize power in Mesopotamia. From the region of Parsa or Persis, present-day Fars, Iran, they eventually overran all of the ancient Near East and would establish a vast empire. And the rulers of this new empire traced their ancestry back to this sort of semi-legendary Persian king by the name of Achaemenes. And consequently, they are known as the Achaemenids. This is Persepolis. In about 515, King Darius began the construction of Parsa, a new capital in the Persian homelands, and the Zagros highlands. Today, the city is known as Persepolis. This is a name that the Greeks gave it. It is one of the best preserved, it is one of the most impressive ancient sites in the Near East. And it really kind of plays into, this opulence, this wealth, this power of the Persian kings. Darius imported materials. He imported workers from different parts of his empire and artists from all over his empire for this building project. And he ordered work to be executed in Egypt and transported to his capital. The result was a new style of art. This is so important to know. This is this diffusion of cultural traditions into one place. And so this new art style was a combination of Persian, Mede, Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Greek art, all in one place. And in true Assyrian fashion, the complex at Persepolis was set on a raised platform. It was laid out on a rectangular grid or a system of cross lines. And the platform was 40 feet high and measured 1,500 feet by 900 feet. It was accessible only from a single approach made of a wide, shallow steps that allowed horsemen, get this, allowed horsemen to ride their horses up the staircase. Darius lived to see the completion of the treasury, the Apennada, the audience hall, and a very small palace for himself on the platform. The Apadana, set above the rest of the complex on a second terrace, had open porches. It had 3 sides, a square hall large enough to hold several thousand people. Darius' son, Xerxes I, added a sprawling palace complex for himself. He enlarged the treasury building and began a vast new public reception space, and this would become known as the Hall of 100 Columns. Persian sculpture emphasized the extent of the empire, its economic prosperity under the Persian rule. And the central staircase, as we see here, of Darius's Apendana, displayed the reliefs of animal combat, tiered ranks of royal guards, the 10,000 immortals, and a delegation of tribute bearers. Here, lions are attacking bulls at each side of the Persian generals. These animal combats emphasized the ferocity of the leaders and their men. Ranks of warriors would cover the walls with repeated patterns, and they seemed ready to defend the palace, either physically or even just spiritually. The elegant drawing, the balanced composition, the sleek modeling of the figures reflects the Persian knowledge of Greek art and perhaps the use of Greek artists. Again, they're bringing them from the outside in. There are other reliefs throughout the Persepolis that depict the display of allegiances or economic prosperity. And in one example, once the centerpiece, Darius would hold audience while his son and heir Xerxes would listen from behind the throne. And such panels would have looked much differently because they were painted. They had rich tones of blues and greens and turquoise and purples and scarlet, with metal objects such as Darius's crown and necklace would have been covered in a gold leaf, that they would have hammered sheets of gold so thin that you could just paint it on. So we've looked at 3 works of art. They all have politics as the reason that they are being created. One was created for a law, the other was to intimidate, and the last was to really just show, how powerful, how wealthy that empire was. So don't forget, we have Hammurabi, Babylonian, we have the Lamassu, built during the Assyrian time period, and then we have Persepolis, and that was during the Persian time period, all built with politics in mind. Hey, if you like what you saw today, hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll see you in the next video.